their birth and all these things. So we're going to continue with that line because we still really haven't finished it. There's a lot more to talk about regarding that. So it says also in the pasuk, right? The pasuk that we were doing last time. It says, "V'Rav ya'avod tza'ir." What does that mean? That Rav is the big guy, right? They were twins, Esav and Yaakov. So it says, right, the older one is going to serve the younger one. So who was the younger one? Yaakov was the younger one, and Esav was the older one. So what does that mean? That really, Esav is supposed to be the servant of Yaakov. What does that mean? Since Yaakov, why is that, by the way? What's the reason why? Because we're going to see right now that they had different roles. Esav was a man of the field, ish sadeh. He was a person who goes out there and makes wars, and does all kinds of business, stock market, Wall Street, this kind of guy, go-getter, this guy who's out there in the field, doing the work. Right? And Yaakov is the one who's sitting in the Bet HaMidrash, he's learning Torah all day, you understand? That's what he was. That's what it says, right? So what was supposed to be is that the plan was that Yaakov was supposed to be sitting in the Bet HaMidrash, learning Torah. And Esav was supposed to be going and serving him, bringing his needs in order that he should be able to sit and learn Torah. That was the whole idea. It didn't exactly work that way, by the way. We're going to see why it didn't work out that way. Because Esav refused to take his role, as the supporter of Yaakov. He didn't want that. He rejected it. So because of that, we have to find different ways of making this arrangement with different people. So with Esav, it didn't work out so well. But the point is, Rabbi, that even if Esav doesn't want, by the way, to serve Yaakov, he doesn't really want. But he's forced to, you understand? In other words, if the Jews are deserving, and they're doing the Torah and Mitzvot, Esav has no choice but to serve Yaakov. He has no other way. So he's forced to do that, and this is exactly, by the way, we see this right in several times in history. That the Bnei Esav, who are the Europeans, the Christians, they sometimes do the bidding of the Jews, even though they don't really want to. But in other words, that the destiny forces them. The nature of things forces them, and we see that, by the way, today also. That we see the America is really helping Israel. And that's really the basically that model. You understand? Why do the Americans so much want to help Israel? What's the reason why? Because it says in the pasuk, right? The older one's going to serve the younger one. So this is actually right the destiny of the whole thing. And by the way, we're going to talk about that in depth. We really should, because there's a lot to discuss about that. There's a lot of things to understand.
Two reasons why the American Jews help Israel. One is the power of American Jews to...
I'm not talking about the American Jews. I'm talking about the American Goyim. That's what I'm talking about.
The American Jews are so powerful that they're able to sway the whole country.
Absolutely, it's true.
But combined with the Jews, the powerful Jews, are the evangelicals.
Right. That's what we're talking about. That's what now you got to it, right? That's what we're talking. We're talking about those guys, the Bible Belt guys. We're talking about those guys. Yeah, exactly. So let's see how it works out. So it says, right, so it says, right, that Rivka now was about to give birth, and all of a sudden they find now, they didn't know, by the way, they didn't have in those days these machines that find out what's going on in there, who's in there, what's going, they didn't have that. So now all of a sudden, right, she's giving birth, they see, it's twins, but it says in the pasuk Tomim, right, it says it in a lacking way. It's lacking one letter over here. Right, exactly. So the Aleph, right? That's what it should. So it's lacking. Why is it lacking? Because here, one of them was a tzaddik, one of them was a rasha, right? Esav was a rasha. He was a wicked man. So because of that, it writes the word tomim, twins, lacking. Because one of them is a good guy, one of them is not a good guy. That's the way it was. And this is the reason why I wrote it that way, to show you, right, that not both of them turned out exactly the way they should. Only one of them. Esau and Jacob. Esau and Jacob, right.
Esau had red hair, right?
Now we're going to talk about that, right? Exactly what it was with this red thing, right? We're going to talk about that. It's not exactly the red hair. We're trying to understand a little bit more accurately. But Esau Rishon Admoni, right? Exactly what it says. Exactly what you just said now. The first one came out Admoni, right? So this in Hebrew, the word Admoni means red. He's a reddish guy. You understand? But the misunderstanding is what? The misunderstanding is always that they think he was red-headed, Like they say about David HaMelech also, by the way, that he was red-headed. But David HaMelech was not red-headed. He was Admoni. What does Admoni mean? He was reddish complexion. That's what it means.
Ruddy. The word is ruddy.
Right, exactly, ruddy. I like that. It's a good word. Okay. So what's the story? The story is that he wasn't red-headed, but he was red. His face was red. Like the expression rednecks. You ever heard that? Same idea. The rednecks. He was a redneck.
Rednecks get sunburn on the
Right.
That's why.
Yeah. They're red. Yeah.
Ruddy is ruddy.
That's what it is. Yes, it's the same thing. Believe me. These rednecks are also right. These rednecks are also. They have a reddish complexion. That's what they have. They're red. And by the way, there's a reason for that. This all ties in very, very well. So it says Kulo ke'aderet se'ar vayikru shemo Esav. So now it tells you, right? Not only he was red, but he was also like aderet se'ar. What does that mean? He was like a mantle of hair. What does that mean?
Like
he had a full head of hair, like a grown-up man. Like a 40-year-old guy. You understand? Full head of hair came out full. With parted. The hair. Everything nice. Grown up. Looked like a grown-up man. So it says, right, that they called him Esav. Now, why did they call him this name Esav? What does it have to do? Okay, so we already said that he was red. He had a hair. So, okay, the word for hair in Hebrew is se'ir, se'ar. So why does it, what does it come to, what is this word Esav? Right, but the word mindori, it means sadeh in Hebrew. So that also doesn't match up. So the question is, for all these things, why they call him Esav? What's the reason they call him Esav? What does it have to do with all these things, descriptions that we said? So Rashi explains over here, right from the Chazal, that the word Esav means what? Asui, right? What does that mean, Asui?
Complete.
Right, not exactly complete, because complete means shalem in Hebrew, right? So what does the word Asui mean? Like made up, he's made, ready-made, like looks like a grown man. Take him out. Full of hair, his body has hair, like a man, grown man, body hair, on his arms, everywhere, looks like a full-grown man. So they said, wow, this guy looks like, he's a 40-year-old gentleman, like a Congress guy, congressman, So they said, okay, if he's like that, Asui, he's already ready-made. He has nothing else to do, it's pretty much there. So that's why they call him Esav. That's the reason, that's why he got his name. Okay, so let's go on. So it says in the next pasuk, so it says then, right, since we had twins over here, so now comes out the second one, right? So who's that? Yaakov. So why do they call him Yaakov? What's the reason why? Because he was holding on to the heel of Esav, right? Like, like this, holding on. What is this, you ever see a baby like that who holds on to the heel of his brother? What's the story over here? Why would you want to do that? So they say, right, this was a sign. Why? Because we already mentioned last week, right, that they were fighting all the time, right? 9 months of, punching each other out in the stomach, right? Pach, puch, pach, pach, wrestling, this, headlock, chach, chach, and now all of a sudden, after this whole battle ended, 15 rounds, TKO, whatever, bach, so now all of a sudden they come out, and this guy, was still like struggling with his brother, like holding on to his heel. What are you holding his heel for? What is that? They say the Chazal, it wasn't for nothing, this whole thing. So what was the thing? The thing was that the fight was going on between them regarding the Malchut, regarding the kingdom. Who's going to be in charge of the world? Who's going to be the king, right? Is it going to be, Bibi or Trump, one or the other, whatever, you understand? That's the whole thing. That was the whole struggle. So the struggle was like this, right? That they say that really, most of the time in this world, in Olam Hazeh, who's going to be in charge? Esav is going to be in charge, not Yaakov. You understand? Because of the galut, of the exile. So, but what Yaakov is saying is when he's holding his heels like this, you know what? You may be the king for a long time in this world, but I'm right behind you. You should know, right? Once you finish your kingdom, even before you get a chance to finish it completely, I'm going to become the king. You understand? That's what it means. So what does that mean? That when Melech HaMashiach comes, right, he's going to take away the malchut from the kingdom, from Esav. He's going to, right, but not only is he going to take it away when the time comes, but a little bit before that also. In other words, this one is not going to be able to even finish his malchut, finish his kingdom, and this one will come and grab it from him. That's what it means. It's an amazing thing, right? So it's a sign. That's this whole sign. So this is exactly why they call him Yaakov, right? The word Yaakov is akev, right? The heel, holding on to the heel of his brother. That was the whole idea. So it says the pasuk, right, that at this time Yitzhak was 60 years old when he gave birth to these two sons. And we already mentioned, right, that when he got married he was 20, and then we mentioned why he had to wait 20 years, so forth and so on. We talked about that.
40 maybe.
Sorry?
40.
When he got married he was 40 years old, but when he had children he was 60 years old, 20 years after.
Right.
So now, right, all of a sudden, the pasuk goes very fast already, right? The procession is going very quickly. We're not going to talk about now how they played in the playground. We're not interested in that. So we get right to the point, right? What does that mean? We're talking about now the day that they're turning already to bar mitzvah. Yaakov and Esav, bar mitzvah time. You understand? So what's going on now? It says, right, like the Ne'arim, they got big, these two boys. Vahi Esav ish yodeh atzayit ish sadeh, Yaakov ish tam yoshev ohalim. So now all of a sudden, right, when they're kids, you don't really see the difference between them. They all look the same. Every kid looks the same. Messy face, dirty, this and that. It looks like a kid playing around. But once they got big, it started to see the difference already. What? Esav is a man of the field. You understand? Going out and hunting. He was a hunter. You understand? So that was him. He was like to hang around, in the street guy. Outside, all the time outside, hanging around outside. Yaakov is hanging around the Bet HaMidrash all the time, learning Torah, right? He's got a book, this Shulchan Aruch, Gemara, this, that, this, looking over here, looking over there. That's all he does all day, Sits there and learns Torah. That's what he does. So that already now they start to see that we have two different characters altogether. You understand? Two different people altogether, even though they're twin brothers. They're not, very far. They're twins, but they have now totally different character. So it goes on to say in the pasuk, right? Vayehav Yitzchak et Esav. So now we see, right, that we already see like there was favoritism in the family over here, right? That Yitzchak likes Esav, and his wife, though, Rivka, likes Yaakov more, right? And by the way, who was really right over here? Rivka was right, and Yitzchak was wrong. So then how did that turn out like that? How did it turn out that Yitzchak made a mistake over here? Was he a big rabbi like that, made a mistake? What happened over here? How did it turn out like that? He misjudged their character. He didn't see the character of Esav. He wasn't able to see through him, to see what he really was. He failed. He failed to judge his character. So the question is why? What happened?
Yitzchak was more like Jacob than he was like Esau.
Yeah. He actually should have liked Yaakov more, but for some reason he liked Esav. So what's the story? How did it turn out like that?
Esau used to bring him meat.
Yeah, that's true. Right, it's true. But Rabbi, here we have some more. Yeah, it's true what you're saying. We're going to talk about that. But they say over here, you have to learn one thing from here, right? Which is what? They say, we already talked about this before, that the woman understands the character of the person better than the man does. When you bring a person to a woman, right away she grabs, his character. But the man doesn't see what's inside. He only sees what's outside, just the exterior. He doesn't see what's inside. So because of that, the woman right away spots it. So she spotted him from the beginning that he was a bad boy. But Yitzchak, he doesn't spot that. So all he sees, exactly. All he sees, by the way, is what he sees on the outside. So Esav now, he was a tricky guy. So we have a few things over here, right? What's a trick? Two things, right? It says, right, that the tzayid befiv, right? He was hunting Esav and bringing the hunted meat, as you said, right, to bring to Yitzchak, to honor him, to honor his father, to bring him barbecue every day, nice food, whatever. But the problem was that there's also another way to interpret that, which is what? That Esav, not only he was bringing him food, but also he was hunting him with his mouth, right? What does that mean? That he was saying all kinds of tricky stuff to make himself look like he was righteous, he knew how to play these games. Manipulator. Yeah, exactly. He was a manipulator, exactly. So he was so good at it that he convinced his father that he was a good guy, a righteous man, even though he wasn't. But his father didn't know about all that. So because of that, Esav was able to play all these games. What would he do, by the way? They say the Chazal. What did he do? He used to come to his father and say, Abba, how do you do maaser on salt? Like things like this. What does that mean? Like, when a person farms food in Eretz Israel, so he has to take maaser from everything, right? 1/10 and give it to the poor, give it to the Kohanim, give it to the Leviim, all these things he has to give. So Esav was saying, does that also apply to salt as well? But salt is not really a food, you understand? So it doesn't really apply. But he wanted to make himself look like he was pious, like say, I do more than the halakha says, more than law says. In the truth, right, he wasn't doing nothing, it was a bum. But because he wanted to, you understand, he was trying to trick his father by asking him all these kinds of trick questions, to make himself look like he was a righteous man.
But he was productive in some way.
Yeah, it's interesting what you're saying, right? Productive. By the way, the Rashi over here brings the Chazal, who says something very interesting, right? We said Esau was a man of the field. So Rashi brings from the Chazal something very interesting. He says that he was a batlan, he was batel. What does that mean? An idler, like uksakmuri, So, but really, we should ask a question: does a person who hunts, is that called an idler, like uksakmuri?
No.
That's also a job, a person who hunts. That's also something, So why is it called uksakmuri? Idler. What does that mean? You have to understand that. Right, but he's not an idler. He's busy, right? He's doing something in his life. He's hunting. So why do we call that an idler? So you know what the answer is? This is, by the way, came to me by myself. This answer. The answer is, you have to think about what? You have to think about what his position was. What kind of family did he grow up in? Yitzchak, right? This guy, his father, was a millionaire. A very wealthy man. He had everything, that imaginable, right? Exactly. You know the story. So if his father is so wealthy, that means that his refrigerator is full of food. Everything. Yeah, exactly. You got catering. You got cooks. You got chefs. They'll make you whatever you want. Everything is available. Everything is on the menu.
Yeah.
Right. So a person like that doesn't need to hunt. What are you hunting for? You got everything in the fridge. You got everything in the dining room. So what do you hunt for?
Like Donald Trump Jr., he's a hunter, but he doesn't.
So that's the whole point. Very good. So that's the whole thing. And it said Esav doesn't hunt to eat.
Right.
He hunts for fun, for game.
Yeah.
You understand? That's the whole thing. Esav was not hunting to eat. Believe me, he had no lack of food, no lack of anything. There's no need to hunt. Look in the fridge. You have over there roast beef, you have corned beef, you have this, everything. Everything's there. What do you need to hunt for? But just to play around, waste time, to kill time, That's what he was doing it for. That was the whole idea. You understand? Esav was not hunting for needs. So therefore, a person like that is called an idler. You understand? Why are you wasting your time hunting when you don't need to hunt? Do something more productive with your life.
By the way, I always wondered: is it more, according to the Torah, morally, is it ethical to hunt just for fun? Trophy hunting.
That's a good question. It's a very, very, very sharp question. This question, what you're asking, very sharp.
Very significant.
It is very significant. To be honest with you, it's very significant. So what's the answer? The answer is
I'm personally against it, but
you're against it. You see that?
No, I know a lot of decent people.
David is very humane. He's a very humane guy. I know him from the childhood.
No. Rabbi, it's got nothing to do with him. Yeah. On the contrary, I know people that are very humane, but do it for fun.
Yeah.
They're very humane. They'll do anything for you.
So you know what the answer is, David? The answer is like this. We have a rule in Judaism called Tsar Balei Chaim. What does that mean? You're not allowed to cause suffering to animals, or to any living thing. Whatever it may be, a human being, animal, whatever it is. You're not allowed to cause suffering to anybody. So if that's the case, then what do you see from there? That you can only cause suffering to an animal in order that if you need to eat. If you don't need to eat it, so then you're not allowed to. So that's a sin.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
I always wondered about it.
So what does that mean? That if a guy goes to hunt, right? This guy, remember this guy, the vice president, Dick Cheney? He was also a hunter. Yeah, this guy, yeah. So if Dick Cheney was hunting because, he wanted to eat also from there, that's fine. Yeah, you remember that story? Yeah, yeah, you remember that? Yeah. That's what happens, by the way, when you hunt. Sometimes you shoot the wrong guy.
He was shooting a quail, but he shot one.
Right, exactly. It's a funny story, right? It's a funny story. But the point is, Rabbi, if you're hunting to eat that animal, good, very good. If you're hunting just to for fun, so you're killing an animal for no reason, then you're not allowed to do that. Not allowed to do that. You can only if you want to eat it, you can hunt it. Also, if you want to save yourself from, that if it's going to harm you, you're allowed to kill it because of that reason, obviously. But just for fun, not allowed to have for fun. Okay, that's the answer about that. I don't know about Dick Cheney. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say anything bad about him, but because actually he was a nice guy. He's a very nice guy.
Vice President.
Okay, yeah, very nice guy, very nice man.
For what? For invading countries and slaughtering?
Okay, don't get me to that now. No, he's a wonderful person. Really, he's a wonderful person.
Are you serious?
Yeah, very nice guy.
Dick Cheney.
Top-notch guy. Okay, good. So anyway, Rabbi, let's get back to our discussion. So now we see, right, that what? This is the reason. And Rivka, since she really knew, and by the way, they say that another thing, which is what? That Rivka and Yaakov, all the time that Esau was alive, they knew that Esau was a bum. He knew he was a gangster. but they never told Yitzhak one word about that. They didn't want to speak about it, as we talked about that last time. Right. Exactly. There are all kinds of reasons, whatever. They didn't want Yitzhak to know about this. They never told him one word about what he does on his spare time. He kills people. He's an adulterer. There's all kinds of sins. Never said anything. They never say anything to him about that. So anyway, now we get to the bar mitzvah time, as we said, right? Now this is an interesting story over here. What happens at this bar mitzvah time? Yaakov and Esav meet up now, right? One day, they're living together. Whatever. They're brothers. So what happens is that comes now Esav that day, right? And what happened? It says, right? Vayayazed Yaakov nazid vayavo Esav min hasadeh v'hu ayef. So it says, right? He comes one day, and Yaakov is cooking a dish, cooking up something in the stove there. Right, what was he making? Lentils. Oh, good. And no, not any lentils, but red lentils. Okay, it's a special kind of lentils, which is not always available. You can't always find that. Red lentils. Okay. So comes Esav. By the way, it's an interesting question. I also have to ask: What is Yaakov doing cooking? He should be learning Torah. No, you don't have any other people cooking in the house. So what are you cooking for? To also answer that question. Yaakov was not a cook. He was not a chef. He was a rabbi. So rabbi should be cooking for dishes and stuff. What is this business to cook? That's number one question. But also we have another thing, which Esav comes now, right? Sees Yaakov and he's cooking. So Esav now says he's ayef, right? What does that mean? He's weary, tired. Tired. Oh, wow. He's like totally exhausted, famished. So he sees the food on the stove. He tells Yaakov like this. He says this. He says, "Vayomer Esav el Yaakov, haliteni na min adom hazeh, ki ayef anochi al ken kara shemo adom." So it says right that what Yaakov looks at the food. Esav looks at the food, and he sees the red lentils, on the stove, like it's something so precious, whatever. He tells Yaakov, he says, "Do me a favor, take that dish, and I'm going to open up my mouth like this, and just stuff it inside of me, stuff."
I'm sorry, who says that?
Esav tells, to Yaakov, says, "Do me a favor, I'm very famished now. I'm very hungry. Take it, I'm going to open my mouth and just stuff it in there, I don't even want to bother to eat it. Just
No table manners.
No table manners, exactly." So what's the story over here? Why do you tell him that? It's so weird to say this to your brother, come and say, just stuff me in there, don't even bother, that's what you should do. So it says the pasuk also another thing, right? Which is what? It says this is the reason why they called him, the country of Esav, the nation, is called Edom, right? So how do they get that name? Because of this, right? Because of the Adom. He says, feed me from this red lentils, Adom hazeh. Stuff this red thing in my mouth. Stuff it in my throat. That's what I told him, That's the reason why I got this name, Adom. By the way, there's also other reasons, as we're going to talk about.
Because the nation represents... Yeah. Esav's nation, as we know it today, represents the whole
Europe. Yeah, it's Europe. Yeah, it's basically Europe. That's the center of it.
What about the U.S.? We're
going to talk about that. It's a very important question, this question, what you're asking. And I want to make to remind me not forget that. Okay, because I want to get to that too. But you should know, by the way, that the fact that the color of red goes with Esav is a very deep thing. It's not just because of the red lentils, this is just like a nickname, kind of like a nice thing in the family, everybody gets, how it is in the family, right? Everybody gets a nickname, they call this guy Shifty, this guy, this is, everybody gets his name, whatever. But this is much, much deeper. Why? Because they say, by the way, as we said, right, that what Esav, when he came out, he was all red, So they say, by the way, the Chazal, that when a person is red on his face, that shows that he's a murderer, he's a killer, right? That's his nature. His nature is to be a killer. You understand?
Or he's drunk.
And by the way, this is something really, really deep. Why? Because they say that there are people who are born with this mazal, with this luck, to be a killer. There are people who depends on when you're impregnated and when you're born. Depends on the time of the week, whatever, the hours. There are people who are born to be killers, you understand? And that's why they're red. Why? Because they say, right, that they're connected with the mazal, the luck of Mars, right? Mars is a red planet, Everybody knows that, right? Mars is red. So Mars, right? We call that in Hebrew, right? How do you say Mars in Hebrew? Ma'adim. What is that Ma'adim? It means red. Ma'adim, red. Adom. That's the same word, understand? So they say, right, that people who are killers are connected with the luck, with the mazal of Mars. You understand?
And what is the luck of Mars?
To be a killer.
What's the significance?
That red color, right? That red color of that planet, it influences people to kill. That's what it is. But if you have to be connected with that.
You said also he can be shofet,
yeah, for sure. That's also true, right? Very important to what he's saying. So what's the story? The story was that once they saw Esav, once you see a person who's red, and by the way, they say the same thing about David HaMelech, right? When he was born, he was red. So he was also a killer, you understand? So this is exactly... Red, but really red, super red. We're talking about so, by the way, this was not only when he was born. He was all his life he was like that. Yeah, all his life. Yeah. So they saw it already when he was born. You understand? So the point is that David HaMelech was also a killer. You understand? So what's the story? They say, right, that when Shmuel HaNavi saw David, he saw him before he was king. This was before he became king. He looked at him and he said, "Oh my God, this guy's all red. This guy's a killer." So Kadosh Baruch Hu told him, I want this guy to be the king. Anoint him. Put your hands on him and anoint the guy. This is the king. This is the one. So Shmuel now he looks at him and says, "Oh my God, this guy's a murderer. You want me to make this guy king? He's going to kill people." So Kadosh Baruch Hu told him, he says, "You're not judging it right. Listen, I know the guy's a killer, but because he's righteous, he's a tzaddik, he's going to kill for my purposes, you understand? He's going to kill the enemies of God, the enemies of Hashem."
So you can be a righteous killer.
Exactly. Every person can take that mazal, right?
Doesn't go together.
So they say the Chazal, by the way, that what's the story? The story is that even if a Jew gets born, right, with this mazal, as a killer, so there's three things he can do, right, with that mazal. If he's righteous, he's going to be a mohel, right? He's going to be doing milah, That also is blood. You understand? He takes blood, gets enjoyment from that, enjoys that, right? He takes the blood, and he's doing a mitzvah. You understand? So a person who's righteous, he's going to take that and do mitzvot with that. They say, right, if he's benoni, if he's in the middle, not too righteous, like you say, right, 1 foot over here, 1 foot over, so then he's going to be a shochet. What does that mean? Shecht animals. He's going to kill animals, right, for us to eat, to be a shochet, to be a slaughterer. You understand? If he's wicked, what is he going to be? Gangster. He's going to be a killer. You understand? Executioner. This guy. Yeah, hitman. Exactly. That's what it's going to be. So it depends on his nature. You understand? But his nature is to spill blood. You understand? He has to spill blood. If he doesn't spill blood, he doesn't feel satisfaction. Give him satisfaction. That's the way it is. A person you have to understand that. They say, by the way, that because of that, if a person sees that he has a child like that, who has a nature for that, he tells you, oh no, Abba, Dad, I want to become like a shochet, tells you, why I want to do this, things that have to do with blood, So what's it with you to be within that profession? So you should know that's his nature. If he's telling you these kinds of things, you should know maybe that's his nature. You understand?
It's actually a great lesson. Because we always wonder why people have these different characters, inclinations towards, you always wonder, how can a person kill people and sleep at night? It's in their nature, I guess.
It is, yes. It's true. So, Rabbi, that's what happened with Esav. Esav was also one of these guys, you understand? They say, right, the nation of Edom, the nation of Esav, which is, which, as we said, right, the Christians, their nature is they're murderers, they're killers. Understand? That's their mazal. So what does that mean? That means that you have 25,000 murders in America every year. Like nothing, Just in New York City, you have 2,500 every year, 3,000 every year. Go in Chicago.
In Aruba, they have hardly one killing a year. What does that mean?
I don't know. You gotta take me over there. We'll see what happens over there. But you understand what I'm saying? So basically, all the countries of Esav, these are countries where there's a lot of murders.
Wow.
Because they're killers. These people, they're killers. Understand? By the way, they say it's true. But this is I'm talking about statistics now. That's why in America you have, for every person, 300 million people. There's a gun for every person in America. 300 million guns, at least, right? We're talking about documented ones. What about the ones that are not documented? Maybe another 100 million. I don't know exactly how much. Understand? The ones that they don't know about. So these, right? This is exactly why Yitzchak Avinu, when he blessed Esav, what is the blessing that he gave him? He says, "Al charbecha tichye." You're going to live by the sword, right? That he's a person who lives by the sword. To kill, to make wars, right? That's why they say, by the way, another thing, which is what they say, that if you see a country, right, that succeeds in making wars, you should know there's a blood of Esav over there, because no war succeeds without having somebody from Esav over there. That's how it is. You understand? They're warriors. These people. They know how to kill. They know how to do strategy for war. You understand? So that's all the strategy comes from them for war. All these things comes from them. That's the way it is, right? And that's why you see, by the way, that all the places where you have wars going on over there, there's always advisors coming there from the country of Esav to advise them how to do this, how to do that. Go in Syria, right? Over there. Right? There's all kinds of, and this is the reason, by the way, also another thing. You see that most of the Christian countries, their flags, they always have something red in there.
Russia, Moscow.
Everything, red. Yeah, there's always red there. This is the reason why, because the symbol of these countries is red. There's always they're killers, these people. And by the way, you shouldn't think that doesn't mean that they cannot be righteous, because they say, right, that in the end, when the time of Mashiach comes, Bezrat Hashem, Esav will be wiped out. The countries of Esav will be wiped out. The Rome will be wiped out. The Rome will be totally destroyed, by the way. The city of Rome will be totally wiped out. The Vatican, all this, the idols, all the idols. It talks about it in the Navi, yes, for sure. There's no question about it. And by the way, it talks about also who's going to do it and how it's going to be done. All these things. Maybe we shouldn't get into it now. This is not the time. That's also true, right? What you're saying. Very, very smart. But anyway, Rabbi, what I'm saying is that even though it says the prophets say that Esav will be totally wiped out, but they say that doesn't mean all the people who come from Esav. It means the ones who act like Esav. You understand? The ones who act are wicked like Esav, so they will be wiped out. But the ones who are from Esav, but they act good, they're good people, righteous people, like we found here in this country. Many people from Esav, they're good people. So people like that will not be wiped out. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't discriminate between one family and another. If they're good, they're good. It doesn't make any difference. You understand?
They follow a false religion.
Yeah, but they have. Yeah, we talked about that, right? We talked about that the religion, is going to be, is going to have to be modified, because it's not, there are a lot of falsehood over there. But they say, by the way, Rabbi, that.
But they say that we have to accept their religion.
Right, but you know what it is? I'll tell you. This is a very good question, by the way. Maybe we should listen to them, right? Well, why should we listen to what they say? What makes us more right than them? That's a very good question. So what's the answer? So the answer is, Rabbi, the answer is, what he's saying is true. So it's true. The answer is like this: that who was the nation who received the Torah? The Jewish people received the Torah. Understand? By the way, it says in the Chazal that HaKadosh Baruch Hu went to all the other nations and asked them, "You want to take the Torah?" So they all refused. The only ones who accepted was the Jewish people. Understand? So what does that mean? When HaKadosh Baruch Hu went to Esav, right? The Chazal say, "So you want to accept the Torah? You want it?" So Esav asked, what did he ask? He said, "What's in it? I want to see. What does it say there? Tell me what it says." So HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, "Don't kill. Do not kill." It says over there, the 10 Commandments. So he says, "No, I cannot accept that." He says, "My father blessed me, that I'm going to be a warrior. I have to kill." He says, "I can accept that, the Torah like that. I'm a killer. What are you talking about? My whole mazal is to kill. So you want me to accept something like that? I can't accept that." So they went to Ishmael, they went to the Arabs. He says, you want to take the Torah? The Arabs, they asked him. So the Arabs asked, right, what's in there? So the Baruch Hu tells them, don't steal. So we cannot do that, right? He says, our father was a thief, was a bandit, He robs people. So he says, our tradition is to steal, we're thieves. Yad Kol, Yad Kol Bo. You understand? That's their. By the way, you should go to Israel. You should know what they say about those people, right? They're all. You look one way, it's gone, right?
Their father was Abraham.
Right, but they don't go in the ways of Abraham. They go in the ways of Ishmael. They're you understand? By the way, in the end, they will do tshuva. But they haven't done it yet. You want to hear a funny story about that? By the way, about how that plays in. They say, right, that the Arafat, remember Arafat? You remember this guy? So he was a big enemy of the Jews. Big anti-Semite. So they say, by the way, that one time one of the kings of the Arabs bought him a plane, So he had a private plane, and he used to fly around in a private plane. He had a private plane. So he hires as a pilot, right? Who does he hire as his pilot? American guy. American guys, they're smart people. He hires an American guy. So a pilot was American. So this American guy, after he finished the job with Arafat, he spoke about some things that he experienced with this guy. They asked him, what is it like to work with Arafat, to fly Arafat around? So he says, I'll tell you. He says, these guys were such thieves. He says, one time, he says, we went to a certain hotel, he says it would happen many times like this. We used to like go to different countries, this country, that country, fly around a lot. So he says what they used to do was they used to go into the hotel, the Arafat and his people, So he says when they would come out of the hotel, they would come into the plane, it's the briefcases, suitcases. They would open up the suitcases, he says, and what would they do? He says, they would show everybody the towels that they stole from the hotel, and they were happy, we got these towels, we stole from them, we got them, That's what this pilot talked about, you understand? Souvenirs, exactly.
My grandmother used to steal towels.
So they would come, but they would show off, you know what I'm saying? They would say, we got it, we got those towels, we got it, Yeah, that's the way it was.
This was my grandmother in a diner. She would rarely go out, but do you see that knife? The bread knife? Yeah. We don't have one like that at home. By the time we walk out, I'm going to open up my purse and you drop it in there. According to her, she was doing good for the family.
Not exactly. Okay, so anyway, Rabotai. So why am I telling you this? What's behind the story? The story is like this over time. That since the Jews were the only ones who accepted the Torah, we're the only ones who really have the information about God and all these things. What's God? What's Satan? What's this? What's allowed? What's not allowed? The Goyim, they have no information regarding these things whatsoever. They have no ways, they have no source to get only from our Torah.
I watch, just for curiosity, the Christian shows sometimes. And a lot of the preaching is from the Bible.
For sure, there's no question about
it. The other day, this guy was telling his congregation that all the money that you have, all the wealth, if God wants to take it away, like Torah tells us, they can take it away.
Yeah.
It doesn't, a lot of the values come from.
There's no question about it. There's no question about it. But David, you know what the difference is like this?
They know what's right and wrong.
Whatever they take from us, that comes from God.
Right.
You understand? Whatever they make up themselves, it doesn't come from God. They made up themselves. That's something else. You understand? They have no other source for information, for divine information, besides us. They have no other address. Because we're the only ones who got the Torah. But there's also another thing which I want to explain to you. Right, last week we also talked about this. Yeshu. So now, what's the story? The story is that you come and tell me, they say he was right and this guy was wrong, and there's all these things. Who's right and who's wrong. So let me ask you a question. I'll give you an example. Right, his brother, his name is Rivaz. Revaz, nice guy, very sweet guy. So Revaz, can you imagine now? I'll give you an example. I know Revaz, I see what he looks like. I know him, very nice guy. You also know Revaz. But who knows Revaz better, you or me? Obviously you're his brother. You grew up with him. You spent all the time with him. So now I'm gonna come and say, listen, I'm gonna make a theory about Revaz. I'm gonna say about Revaz. Listen, I heard that Revaz every morning for breakfast he had fruity pebbles, for every. So comes now David, says, listen, he says, Mike, come on, give me a break. I'm his brother. I saw he wasn't eating fruity pebbles. Every day he was eating Cheerios and cornflakes. He never ate fruity pebbles in his life. You understand? So I'm going to come to David and says, listen, no, David says, I know better than you, listen, with all due respect, but I know you're his brother, but I heard from the grapevine, he was eating fruity pebbles every day. So comes David and says, listen, Mike, have you lost your mind? Like, I'm his brother, I spent all my life with him. He never ate fruity pebbles once in his life. So why am I telling you? What's so much out? You understand? You understand? We are the ones who raised Yeshu. You understand? He grew up with us. I was our child. So who knows better what he was? They know. They never spent one minute with Yeshu in the desert. We knew what Yeshu was. He grew up by us. You understand? So who's going to know better now? Give me a break, man. You're going to tell me now what was Yeshu? Yeshu was one of our boys. You understand? So they're going to tell us now what he was and what he wasn't and what he did and what he didn't do. Isn't that ridiculous?
How far does our...
You understand what I'm saying? Doctor, you got my point? But it's very simple, You don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand.
How far does our knowledge and our acquaintance with him go?
Well, he was in time. He was in time of the Second Temple. He was in time of the Second Temple. So the rabbis wrote down all the history of everything what happened.
Even when he was a child.
Yeah, from everything. So they knew. That all the exactly what happened. So we have a clear history of what happened there. And now comes these guys who come from the outside. They never saw him. They never met this guy. They never, they don't even know what he was. They make up some stories about him. So come on. It's like Fruity Pebbles or Cheerios. Come on, give me a break, man.
I'm saying he sounded.
You understand what I'm saying? have to understand these things. This is not. It's not a game. So that's what the answer is, David.
But then
the answer is,
why would the Torah say anything good about someone who went against our?
That's the whole point. If you went against that means he once again against God, because we got that from God. You understand? And by the way, there's one basic, fundamental difference between our religion and all the other religions. What is that? Explain to you what it is. Their religions, they come and tell us, we had some kind of prophet, we had some kind of divine person, like this guy, Yeshu Imach Shemo, or Muhammad Imach Shemo, this donkey, right? Muhammad, right? So they come and say, he was divine, he was a prophet, he was really a donkey, but they say he was the perfect divine. Okay, so we don't believe that, because we know that he was against the Torah. What he did was against the Torah, it was against religion, it was against God. So they come and say, these people, but he was divine, So it's like, we don't believe that. But what's the difference between our religion and their religion? Our religion, we saw the 10 Commandments given by God. There was millions of people standing there and saw that. Not just some psycho, who went to sleep, some guy who had some, strange dreams, and came out with all kinds of nonsense. You understand? We're talking about millions of people who witnessed this event. So nobody denies that. You understand? The Jews received the 10 Commandments in the Torah on Har Sinai. Nobody can deny that. That's a fact. Because you can deny what one person says. You can't deny what 2 million people saw with their eyes. That's the difference between theirs and our religion. You understand? It's not the same thing at all. There's no comparison between one and the other.
They copy from us.
I wish they would copy, but the problem is they're copying. They're distorting. That's the problem. If they were copying, I like that. That's very good.
Holy water. They have Kwanzaa, which is like Hanukkah. They say.
That's the issue. So we can't really take them seriously. All these people, things that they say. These narratives that they bring. They never saw the guy. They never met the guy. They don't know what he is. It's like you have your brother in your house. And I'm telling you, I know your brother better than you. Yeah, right. I know your brother better than you. You grew up with the guy. You spent hours with him day and night. I know him better than you. So what? Come on. Don't make a joke out of it. That's the way it is, David. That's the idea. Anyway, let's go on over time. So it says, right? Vayom Yaakov Micha Kayom Bechoratecha li. So now Esau comes and tells him, he says, stuff me up, stuff me. So Yaakov tells him, what? I don't mind stuffing you up. I'll give you as much as you want. I got a big pot, But you know what? I want you to sell the birthright to me, the firstborn right. I'll give it to you not for free. I don't give you free lunch. That's what he tells him. So, by the way, in order to understand this whole story, you have to understand some background information first of all. What's background information? They say right that day that Esau came to have that meal, with Yaakov. There was a few things that occurred over there. There was a whole thing. It was a big day, by the way, a very eventful day. A lot of top stories were over there at that time. There's some top stories. So what was the story? The story was that day was the day that Avraham Avinu died. You understand? So this is exactly why they were making these lentils, because they served these lentils to mourners. That was the custom. They used to eat. Nowadays, they serve eggs, all kinds of things like that, which is, by the way, very similar to the lentils. What's the similarity? Because the lentils are round, right? And also the eggs are round. So what does that mean? That the life is like a circle, you get born, you die, God forbid. It's like you go around. It's always like going around, it doesn't never stays in one place. That's why they serve the mourners like round foods like that, like lentils, eggs. Today now they have hachapuri over here, Baruch Hashem. That's also good, Baruch Hashem. That's very good. So, now, the thing is like this, that there's a few things that you have to know about that, which is what? That Abraham Avinu, we already spoke about this before, that Kadosh Baruch Hu took him 5 years in advance because he didn't want him to see what Esau was going to do. He was really supposed to live 180 years old, like Yitzchak, but he only lived 175. Why? Because at this time, where Esau became Bar Mitzvah, and Yaakov, this is when now Esau started to do sins. Before that, he was an innocent guy. Now he started to do sins. So Kadosh Baruch Hu didn't want Abraham Avinu to see that. Why? Because he wanted him, because he trusted him. Kadosh Baruch Hu wanted to reward him, since he passed all the trials that he gave him. So he wanted to have a perfect life ending, like story time, everything beautiful ending, nothing wrong. So Kadosh Baruch Hu wanted to give Abraham Avinu a picture perfect life in the end. So he said, I'm not going to let you see what Esau was going to do, because it's going to bother you. So this is the reason why I took him in advance, and this is exactly what happened over here. Esau now begins to start his sinful career. Avraham Avinu dies because of that. He doesn't want him to see it. Understand? So now we ask another question, which is what? Why was Yaakov cooking this food? he's a cook, he's a chef, this guy. What is he doing? Somebody else can cook this stuff. They have slaves, they have servants, they have all kinds of, they have maids. Why him? So the whole point was that what? That when a person is avel, chas v'shalom, right? When somebody dies in the family, we've all gone through it already, right? David, me, Jimmy, we've been through it, but you shouldn't see from it, right? You shouldn't see from it. So, what's the story? The story is that there's a mitzvah to do that day, right? The day that they bury the dead. What's the mitzvah? One of the mitzvot is that somebody should give food, a meal, to the mourner, the one who's mourning. It's a mitzvah to give him. So Yaakov Avinu wanted to do this mitzvah of giving his father, right, Yitzchak, the mourner's meal. That's why he cooked it himself. He wanted to get the mitzvah himself. You understand? He wanted to do it with his own hands. It's a bigger mitzvah when you do it on your own. By the way, they say, right, it's an interesting thing they say, that a person has a big mitzvah to honor his parents, right? To honor them as much as he can, right? Depending on the situation. So they say, right, that even though it's a mitzvah, sometimes a person cannot honor his parents because he's far away from them, he lives in a different town, whatever, all kinds of things like this. So they say, but anyway, it's a mitzvah always to do it better yourself than to appoint somebody to do it. You can also appoint like a shliach, like an agent to do it. If you can't do it yourself, you're allowed to appoint an agent also.
The agent is like.
But they say, right, but if you can do it yourself, it's a bigger mitzvah. This is exactly what he did over here. He did the mitzvah himself with his own hands, and you don't want to do it by way of an agent because it's a bigger mitzvah when you do it yourself in the mitzvah with your own hands. That's all idea.
Rashi explains, if somebody's like, let's say 200 years old, and he reaches 190, 195, you have to be scared how long he's going to live.
Okay, so
5 years to
let me tell you another thing now, interesting thing, right? Funny story. What was Esav? How did he come back so tired, Esav? Right? What's the story over here?
Right, you killed somebody.
I asked, I'm tired, I'm weary. Stuff me in there. What's the story over here? How did he get in a situation like that? You understand? Very strange. So they say Chazal that day was also a great momentous day for Esav. What happened? That day, what happened was that before that day, one day Esav went out to hunt. He was a hunter. He decided to go around the fields. This and that. So one day he got into the wrong field. He started messing with the wrong guy. So what happened over there? He went, to explore some new areas. Got sick of hunting in the same place. Now you want to go to a different forest. This time go to Wyoming. Go to this and that. Go to Colorado. Check out some new forests. Check out this. Then. So what happened was that one day he went to like a place which was pretty far. So he starts to hunt over there, you understand? Starts the hunting business. So all of a sudden he sees like a big guy over there, black guy, like, scary looking guy, big tall guy, He sees him over there, and he's also like hunting over there. He's doing some recreational activity there. So this guy spots him, this black guy spots this guy. So he tells him, he says, "What are you doing over here? What are you hunting over here?" He says, "This is my private hunting area. Get your butt out of here because you have no business over here. If you continue to hunt over here, you're going to be in big trouble." Tells him. Tells Esav like that. You know what I'm saying? So Esav says, "Who are you to tell me what to do? This is public area. This is not your private. What? This is your house? What's your home? What are you doing? This is a forest. It belongs to everybody." So who was this guy? This guy was Nimrod. Understand? The king of Babel, of Iraq. He was the grandson of Ham, black guy, understand? So Nimrod was a very scary guy. This guy was dangerous fellow. Yeah, exactly. So we're going to talk about that. So Nimrod tells Esav, get your beat out of here, otherwise I'm going to tear you apart. Nothing will be left of you. That's what he tells Esav. So Esav tells him, he says, "You know what?" He says, "I'm not going to listen to you. You're going to boss me around? You know what? Let's set a date. I'm going to come back and I'm going to duel with you. I'm going to have a duel with you. And we're going to see who's going to be the best man. Who's going to win? We're going to fight. We're going to have a fight." Like what happened with Trump and Cheney. What's not Cheney? This guy. What's his name? Joe Biden, right? Joe Biden. Who's going to beat up this guy? Who's going to beat up who? Right? So this is the same thing over here. You understand? Comes they have deal, right? Because Trump is a good guy. Also, Joe is not as good as Trump, but anyway, comes Esav. Comes home after this whole episode. And he's like, he got scared, because this big black guy, he's going to kill him, a gorilla, he's going to kill this guy. So he comes back home after this whole episode. And he goes to Yaakov, they're brothers. They talk with each other, they consult with each other. He goes to Yaakov and he sits down and he says, I want to tell you what happened to me today. What happened to you? What happened? So he says, I met up with this guy, the Nimrod, this big guy, scary guy. He says, don't come over to that far. He says, I'm going to kill you if you come over there. And he says, I made like a duel date with him, to duel with him. So he says, you know what? Can you give me some advice? Like, what should I do? How should I handle this? He says, I'm a little bit scared. So Yaakov tells him, he says, you know what? He says, let me tell you something. I'm going to tell you a secret now. Tells him, Yaakov, listen, he says, the whole power with this guy, he's not really such a powerful guy. So how is it that he always wins his wars and he always captures the hunt and all this? He says he's got special clothing, that helps him. He has the clothing of Adam Arishon, the first man, had special clothing that Hashem made from him, So he said that clothing has a magic power. If you wear that clothing, nobody will be able to beat you. It's like, you're totally shielded from anybody. Nobody can touch you. He says, this is a secret. He says, what I want you to do is like this. He says, if you really want to beat this guy, when you go back there for that day, right, the date you have with him, he says, go tell him this. He says, I heard that you have this special, clothing from Adam Arishon. He says, this is the reason why you win all your battles. So he says, if you really want to have a fight with me, and you want it to be fair, take off this clothing, and let's duel without that, because otherwise you have an unfair advantage. I can't really fight with you like that. If you really want to be just me and you, pound for pound, glove for glove. Go 15 rounds. We'll see who's going to win. So Esav listened to Yaakov. This is what he told him. He says, "Oh wow!" He says, "I didn't know that. Wow! Thanks for telling me. Thanks for the tip." So he goes back there. You understand? And he meets up that day with Nimrod. So he tells Nimrod. He says, I heard, that you have this special suit from Adam Arishon, and because of that you win all your battles. He says, it's not fair. He says, if you really want to battle with me, take it off. Let's see if you can really battle without it, because I'm here coming with no helpers. It's just me and you, No artificial, no, just me and you. Let's see who's a real tough guy. So Nimrod says, he says, oh, okay. He says, you want me to do that? Says, no problem. He says, I'll kick your without that. No problem. So he takes it off. Can you imagine? He got him to take it off. Smart. That's what happens when you listen to a good rabbi, right? Yaakov was a good rabbi. He gave him the right advice. So he took it off. He says, okay, I'm ready for you, Let's go.
Even though he knew that was his weapon.
Yeah. So what does Esav do? Esav pulls a trick on him, right? He goes and grabs the beged, puts it on himself, and then kills Nimrod, and finishes him off like that.
That's and that happened before he came to dinner.
That was the day that he killed him. That was the day. So what happened was that day was the day that he killed Nimrod. So he committed murder. You understand? And he also did other sins that day. They say, right? They said he went with a girl who was betrothed, engaged with a man, and he committed adultery that day. And also he denied the existence of God. He says, I don't believe in God, I don't believe in Torah, I don't believe in all this. Became a denier, became a heretic. Understand? So what happened was that day was the day that he really sinned. So that's why he was very tired, you understand? After he killed Nimrod, all his muscles were used up, so now he really needs to eat badly. So he comes now to Yaakov. Yaakov tells him, he says, sell me the birthright. Why did Yaakov do this, by the way? Should you ask your brother to pay you to feed him dinner? That doesn't make any sense, no? Would you ask your brother to pay you to come when he comes over your house for dinner? We can say, oh yeah, David, but the Revas, give me like $50, You ate a lot of food over here. You wouldn't do that, right? So why would you do such a thing like that? It doesn't make any sense. It's not derech eretz. It's dino bara. Ask your brother to pay you for the food, and also for a cheap meal like that, just lentils, no meat, no nothing, no chicken, no this, no kebabs. What? Who has to pay for lentils? How much you pay for lentils? For what? 50 cents you're going to pay? What are you going to pay for it? So it tells him, no, but I want you to sell your birthright. So Esav tells him like this, to Yaakov. He says, birthright? You want me to sell you my birthright? So Yaakov says, yeah, that's all I want. I'm not asking you for money. It's just a small thing, birthright, the firstborn right. So Esav asks him, he says, let me ask you a question. He says, what does that involve? Like practically speaking, what does that mean that I'm selling you that? What am I losing, practically speaking? So he tells him, he says, it's not really a big deal. He says, you know what? When you're firstborn, that means you offer up the sacrifices in the Bet HaMikdash, in the temple. When you have a temple, you are the one who brings the sacrifices. The firstborn is the Kohen. He's the one who brings the sacrifices. He's a priest. High priest. That's what you're giving up, he says. He says, are you interested in that, being a high priest? So Esav tells him, he says, tell me a little bit more about that. He says, I want to know what's the story with that. How does it work? So he says, you know what? He says, it's a little bit dangerous, because if you come there and perform the sacrifice and you're drunk, you had some beers or some cocktails beforehand, so you're gonna be died. God will kill you, because you're not allowed to come there drunk. Yeah, you cannot come there after you drank in the bar. After you went to the pub, you can't come there. So Esav tells him, he says, that's what it means to be firstborn. So he says, I'm gonna die from that. I'm gonna come one day from the pub, after I had a couple of beers, a couple of Heinekens, and then I'm gonna die. He says, I don't want that. He says, what do I care about it? He says, I'll give it to you. I don't care. What do I care? I'll give it to you. He says, I don't care about that. I don't want to put myself in danger. That's what he tells him. So the pasuk says like this, right? And he sold it to him without even thinking, twice. So the funny thing is like this, right? They say, "Vayomer Esav Hinei Anochi Olech Lamut Velama Zeh Li Bechora." Just like I told you. So then he says, "Vayomer Yaakov Yishab'a Li Kayom Yishab'a Lo Ben Kort Bechorato LiYaakov." So now Yaakov tells him, he says, "You want to sell it to me?" He says, "Yes, no problem." He says, "Will you swear? Take an oath now. I solemnly swear." "Yes, no problem." He swore. So the pasuk says after that, right? The verse says, "Yaakov natan le'esav lechem unzid ve'nashim." Gave him the meal. He gave him bread. He gave him the lentils, right? No meat, no nothing, right? No French fries. V'yochal ve'yesh ve'Yaakov melech teirus ve'yasem te'bechor. So it says something amazing, right? That he ate Esav, bread, this, lentils, everything. Got a nice meal, and then he says he despised the firstborn, right? That's what it says in the pasuk, right? Vayivez, right? So what does it mean despised? By the way, this was a very big monumental thing, you should know. It wasn't something small. Why is that? Because they say, right, Esav was born in a holy family, you understand? Yitzchak was the father, Rivka was the mother. He's supposed to be, right, as we said, he himself was supposed to be a Messiah, Esav, right? That was the plan. He was supposed to be Mashiach ben Yosef, the first Mashiach. There's two Mashiachs, right? So he was supposed to be the first one, and then after him Mashiach ben David. So Esav was supposed to be a Messiah. So can you imagine a Messiah? He's so quick to give up the service of God. So that's what it means in the verse over here, right? He disgraced it, right? Meaning what? That he's willing to sell it for a couple, like a plate of vegetables. You understand? Doesn't mean nothing to him. Not only that, the Chazal say even something even more powerful. They say, right, that not only he sold it without any hesitation, but when he was sitting and eating the meal, when Yaakov turned around, like whatever, so he and his friend, were like chuckling with each other. What are you chuckling about? What's this? So what they were chuckling about was what? They said, Yaakov, he's such a fool, he sold me, like a full meal just for that, the firstborn right. He says, what a fool he is, not only they were they sold it with no hesitation, he sold it, but also he was laughing about it, Yaakov is such a fool. I gave him nothing and I got a free meal, What did I give him? I gave him nothing. That's not worth anything. So, what does this mean? And we're going to stop here because it's getting late. But this is an amazing thing, because they say the Chazal in the Zohar. I saw in the Zohar Kadosh, the Holy Zohar, something amazing. It says, right, that there's two types of people in this world. There's the Jewish sinners, and then there's Esav. What's the difference, right? There is a difference between them. The Jewish sinners also don't keep Shabbat, as we see, right? They don't keep Shabbat. They don't keep kosher, right? They go to the restaurants, Las Vegas, Atlantic City. They go here. They don't keep any of these things. They don't keep mikveh. They don't keep. The Jewish sinners are also very bad. But there is a difference between a Jewish sinner and Esav. What's the difference? They both look the same, by the way. They're both driving a Mercedes. They're both jet setting. In the first class. Business class. So what difference does it make if you're Esav or Yaakov? If you're a sinner, you're a Jew sinner. So what difference does it make? They say, by the way, that Esav, he's not called a Jewish sinner. He's called total heretic, total denier. What's the difference? Esav, when he made this decision to sell the birthright, and he killed and he denied God and he denied the Torah, he denied the mitzvot of the Torah. What he did was he totally removed himself from holiness. Totally divorced himself. He didn't want any part of it. You understand? So what's the difference? The Jewish sinners, they want something from Judaism. They don't want to leave. They don't want to become Christians. You understand? They still want to stay there. They're not asking to go to church. They want to sin. They want to do their sins. They want to have their fun. They want to enjoy. But they don't want to totally divorce themselves from Judaism. They want to come for Yom Kippur, just hang around outside over there, talk about nonsense. Right? All that stuff. Right? You know what I'm talking about. You know those guys, right? They come here just, for show, whatever.
They want to cling on to something.
Right. They want to cling on something, right? Exactly. The symbolic, whatever. They want to come for Yom Kippur. Those guys, they're not like Esav. You know why? Because Esav wants nothing from Judaism. Totally divorced himself, right? Totally to Avodah Zarah, totally to idol worship, idolatry. You understand? But the Jewish sinners, no, they want to stay. So they get something, because they do a lot of mitzvot. These sinners, they also do a lot of mitzvot, by the way. They give tzedakah, they support the shul, they give all kinds of things, they do a lot of chesed, kindness, all kinds of things. So they stay with Judaism. But the Esav totally divorced himself from Judaism. Yeah. Totally went out. That's the difference, you understand? So B'ezrat Hashem, we'll continue next time talking about this. But
this was an interesting one.
But what I wanted to emphasize also here is what? That this was also the problem. You understand that these Christians, the ones who started this religion, they made this guy into a god. You understand? Which is idolatry. So, he by the way, he made himself into a god. He said, "I'm divine." He said all these things. They say, by the way, God bless you. Thank you. They say, by the way, that they say, by the way, that a person who makes himself into divine, that means that he's totally impure. Somebody who's like totally unclean. Why? Because he has haughtiness, arrogance in his heart. He thinks he's divine. He thinks he's a god. By the way, same thing I saw with this Imach Shemo, Farrakhan. I saw one of his speeches, by chance, and he said, I'm a god. That's what he said. He declared himself that he's a god. That's what people do. The arrogant people, the arrogant Imach Shemam, the enemies of Israel, what do? They make themselves into a god. They say, I'm God. That's what they say. And this is idolatry, by the way. And this is, by the way, an important thing to know. That, we talked about this issue of Christianity and all this, by the way, last time. But you should know, according to halakha, if a goy, right, believes in something like that, some kind of intermediary that connects him to God, something in the middle, like that's his intermediary. So there is some, justification to that. For a goy, he's allowed to do that. He's allowed to serve God through an intermediary, even though this is false. It's not true, but a goy has a hard time just picturing God, like without a body, without any, symbol, without any some kind of body, some kind of something to hold on to, like something to picture. So for a goy, that's allowed. According to Tosfot, according to some opinions in the Torah, a goy is allowed to serve God like that. Even though it's not really true, that this whole theory that they have is not true, but he needs that to cling on to God because it's an inferior way of serving God. But the Jew, by the way, says the Rambam, who believes that God has some kind of partner or some kind of intermediary, he has no portion in the world to come. No chelek in olam haba. He has no portion in Judaism. You understand? Because the Jew has to believe in God that he has no body. It's not a person. It's not a human being. There's no intermediary there. You go straight to God without any kind of something in the middle. You understand? You don't need anything in the middle.
That's the way the Muslims pray to God.
Is that what the monotheistic?
Yes.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. And this is, by the way, one of the things that makes Islam superior to Christianity, that they don't have idols. And by the way, this is the reason why these crazy guys, this ISIS, these nutcases, when they go into these places, conquer certain towns, which are are Arabic towns, but there's churches there. You understand? So what they do is they go in and destroy all the statues there. Because they don't believe in idolatry. They're against it. So they go and they break down all those statues. Of this, you know what I'm talking about. I don't want to mention their names, right? This guy, this girl, and this, and they go and they burn, they die, and they take hammers, because they believe in one God. And this is the superiority, by the way, to, that they have. The Rambam says that. The Rambam says that when it comes to, monotheism, the Islam is, perfectly monotheistic nowadays. That's the way it is. So this is superiority that they have. By the way, but all these theories that they have and these other things, they're not true. These crazy things that this donkey said, this chamor. They're not true. But in that regard, there is something good there. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it says in Rambam, even though, as we said, right, we spoke about that last time. We said that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right, he has a purpose for all these things. There is a purpose, as we said, right? And what the Rambam says is like this, right? That even though these things are not true, these religions, but it took them out of paganism. And it's going to prepare them little by little for the time to come of Mashiach. Because when Mashiach comes, they won't be so pagan, they won't be so cruel, they won't be so they won't be so like animalistic. So this way they'll be able to adapt themselves to the new reality which will occur at that time. Hakadosh Baruch Hu should bring us to Geulah. Okay, God bless you. Thank you.